Hello and welcome to the annual meeting of shareholders of Coppernico Metals Incorporated. Please note that today's meeting is being recorded. If you participate in today's meeting and disclose personal information, you will be deemed to consent to the recording, transfer, and use of same. If you disclose personal information of another person in today's meeting, you will be deemed to represent and warrant to Computershare and the company that you first obtained all required consent for the disclosure, recording, transfer, and use of such personal information from all appropriate persons before your disclosure. During the meeting, we'll have a question and answer session. You can submit questions or comments at any time by clicking on the Q&A tab. However, please keep in mind that management reserves the right to consider the appropriateness of any proposed questions with regard to the need for confidentiality or the prohibition on giving non-public information. It is now my pleasure to turn today's meeting over to Ivan Bebek, Director, Chair, and CEO for the company. Ivan, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Welcome to the annual general meeting of shareholders of Coppernico Metals, Inc. For 2025. I am Ivan Bebek, Director, Chair, and CEO of the company. Also present today is Vanessa Lee of Computershare Investor Services, Inc., Computershare, the registrar and the transfer agent for the company, and Tracy George, the corporate secretary for the company. This meeting will begin with the formal matters described in the Management Information Circular. Following the formal portion of the meeting, I'll give a shareholder presentation to those who wish to remain online and get the latest updates from the company. At this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order. In accordance with the articles of the company, I'll act as chair of the meeting, and I'll appoint Tracy George, corporate secretary of the company, to act as secretary of the meeting. Vanessa Lee of Computershare is in attendance and will act as scrutineer of the meeting. The notice of this meeting, information circular dated May 14, 2025, and form of proxy and the financial statement request from where were made available electronically and or mailed on May 16, 2025 to the company shareholders of record. I have a copy of the statutory declaration regarding the mailing of the meeting materials. As such, our meeting has been given. Quorum of the meeting for the meeting, as set out in articles of the company, is at least two persons who are or represents by proxy two or more shareholders who, in aggregate, hold at least the meeting. The scrutineer has reported that 73 shareholders voted approximately representing 75,771,312 shares, representing 42.74% of the issued and outstanding shares of the company. Of the 75,771,312 shares voted by proxy, approximately 98% are in favor of the resolutions proposed by management. The final report of the scrutineer will provide the final number of votes by shareholders who are representing themselves and are entitled to vote today. The final voting results will be posted on SEDAR after the meeting today. I adopt the report of the scrutineer and declare the attendance at this meeting to be as set out therein. With appropriate notice of the meeting having been given and a quorum being present, I declare the meeting duly constituted and ready for the transactions of business. As a matter of procedure, only registered shareholders and valid proxy holders who have registered with Computershare are entitled to attend, vote, and submit questions or comments through the meeting platform. If you are a registered shareholder and you have already voted by proxy, you do not need to vote again unless you wish to change your vote. It is expected that the non-registered shareholders attending this meeting have already registered their voting preferences in advance throughout the brokerage firm or bank. In the interest of expediting the business of this meeting, I'll move all motions with respect to the business for which this meeting has been called as set out, notice of the meeting, and in accordance with the articles of the company, no motions need to be seconded. A copy of the company's statement of financial position, related financial statements, and auditor's report for the company's financial year ended December 31st, 2024 was made available to each registered shareholder of the company. I now place these documents before the meeting. A copy of these documents is available upon request. Unless someone specifically requests, the auditor's report will not be read to the meeting. The next item of business is the appointment of the auditor. I move that Davidson & Company be reappointed as auditor of the company until the next annual general meeting of the company, or until a successor is appointed, that the directors be authorized to fix the remuneration of the auditor. I will ask the scrutineer to record all votes on this matter but as already noted, 98% of the proxies have voted in favor, so I'll consider the matter carried and moved on to the next matter requiring your attention. Shareholders entitled to vote at the meeting today should now record their votes, and the scrutineer will tabulate the final results. We will now move on to the election of directors. Pursuant to the articles of the company, the board of directors has set the number of directors of the company at 7. The information circular contains the names of the 7 persons who are proposed by management for election as directors at this meeting. The company has received consents in writing from each of these nominees. The individuals are Ivan James Bebek, Antonio Arribas, Gordon J. Fretwell, Keenan Jennings, Jeffrey R. Mason, Mary Jane McQuay, and Mary Helen Turgeon. As there have been no other nominations made in accordance with the advance notice requirements for the director nominations under the company's articles, I declare the nominations closed, and because the number of nominees equals the available positions, they'll be deemed to have been elected. Because the company requires that each director receives more votes in favor than withheld votes, we will proceed with the vote even though they'll be automatically elected. Any director who receives more withholds than votes in favor must offer his or her resignation. No director received more than 1.3 million withheld votes out of the 75 million votes cast. I move that 7 persons nominated be elected as directors of the company to hold office until the next annual meeting of the company or until successor is elected or appointed, unless their office is earlier vacated in accordance with the provisions of the articles of the company or the Business Corporations Act. Shareholders in person, please record your vote with a scrutineer. I declare all directors elected. On to the other business of the meeting. Is there any other business which should be brought before the meeting? I will do a brief pause here to give a chance for anyone to submit a question or other business. No other business being raised. As there is no further business, I will now move on to terminate the meeting. Termination, as we have completed the formal business for which this meeting has been called, I declare the meeting terminated. On behalf of the board of directors, I'd like to thank you for attending today and invite you to stay on for a shareholder presentation that will commence shortly. This concludes the formal portion of the meeting. Unless you wish to remain online for the shareholder presentation, you may now disconnect. Thank you everyone for attending. I will now start the formal presentation of the meeting. And just coordinating with my slide representative, Margarita, I have the home slide cover page of the company online. So Coppernico Metals, we all know what we're doing. We're looking for some of the largest copper discoveries in the world. We've picked a pivotal time in history where high-grade quality copper deposits are excessively hard to find, and existing mines, major mines that supply the world's copper, most of them are halfway through their production life scales. So the opportunity in an evolving electrical development, global demand for copper, meeting supply issues going forward is pristine in our business plan to go find a major world-class copper mine. Moving on to my cautionary notes. I will be making some forward-looking statements. I'd encourage everyone to go visit our public disclosures on SEDAR or off of our website and various marketing information just to understand the full disclosures that we have about our company. Going on to our next slide here, slide 5. So about 10 years ago, we went out and we identified an area in Peru that seemed extremely prolific for world-class major mines. This was identified through erosional windows next to a very prolific mining trend that hosts the 11th largest producing copper mine in the world, Las Bambas. We quickly recognized the opportunity in geology and several other aspects of the region that this major mining trend could continue on to the west, and we started exploring. The opportunity at Sombrero is extremely rare in today's global copper markets, as it offers not the potential for one major discovery, but as you see in my presentation today, there's multiple targets that could deliver multiple major copper discoveries at a time when copper is extremely excessively difficult to find. We unlocked this region by committing a 9-year effort, which is continuing on with the communities and the environment. We were able to do something different that no junior had ever done before, and that's to work in close contact with the government to bring in agricultural programs into the Andes And we have not only achieved the first community agreement of social access, we are starting to unlock additional communities, and we're advancing permits to go and drill and test some of these world-class targets that we've identified. Going on to the key milestones of the company in the past year, we've been extremely busy. There's been a lot of things that have happened in a very short period of time, from the raising of $19 million, which included an investment for nearly $9 million from Tech Resources. We've strengthened our board with the addition of Keenan Jennings and MJ McQuay, who both were two former BHP executives on our actual company now, and they've also become, or Keenan has become, a shareholder. We have completed our initial drill program where we were able to identify the system is present, and the opportunity to us looks more compelling than it did before those first 20 holes that we completed. We're currently financed for the next 12 months, and we're about to commence our second phase of drilling in the coming months once we complete our expanded drill permits and additional community access that we're working on. Now, looking at the management, I'm on slide number 7 here of the presentation. I'm not sure if there's a delay or not with our service here, but on the management side, we've got a track record of success. At the board level, every board member, with the exception of myself, has over 30 years experience. And if you have the time to go look at some of their backgrounds, they've worked with some of the largest mining companies in the world with some of the most impressive experience and technical abilities. This is going to help considerably the very hungry management team that is on the edge of potentially finding world-class copper discoveries down in Peru. My strength comes from the ability to monetize and finance these opportunities. Tim Kingsley, our VP of Exploration, has extensive experience in Peru. He's extremely prudent, and he's accompanied by Christian Rios, who's also Peruvian and has extensive experience through discoveries in Peru. We are quarterbacked by a great CFO, Stacey Aroa, and we've had no issues to date with any filings, regulatory issues, or any safety issues at any of our projects. So we have a perfect track record to date, and we expect more of that as we move forward. In terms of our technical team, on slide number 8 here, I'm looking at some of the best geologists that I was able to find as a CEO in terms of Antonio Rivas and Keenan Jennings that come from several majors, but their experience is invaluable to us as we guide through the complex natures of a very big district scale opportunity in Peru. Tim, Christian, and Henry have been on the ground extensively. They're driving ahead the day-to-day, but the combination of both sides gives us one of the best technical teams we could possibly achieve to go take on the world-class opportunity in southern Peru. Moving on to slide 9. So as I said before, the thesis was to go find the replication of a major mining trend. And as we're on the major mining trend, we see mines such as Las Bambas, Akira, Los Chancas, Constancia. These are well-known mines. Most of them are in production, but there was a volcano that erupted and covered the western half of this belt. We sampled over 800,000 hectares to identify what we believe to be the most prospective 100,000 hectares of the belt, and we found numerous targets in various areas of outcropping mineralization, and we're trying to find multiple mines in our trend that would replicate an extension of this belt 200 kilometers to the west of all the major mines that we see on the east side of the belt. Moving ahead to slide 10. We identified this through an erosional window. This is an area called Neok. We have been sampling this area for the last few months, and a lot of the extensive sampling here will come out in the next few months as we move towards the fourth quarter. This is where everything started with the initial idea that Sombrero could become something more widespread, exposed mineralization into high-grade potential major ore deposits. The history goes back well beyond the 25 years that we're aware of, but since 2001, an iron ore company called Aceros Arequipa came in here looking for iron. They drilled 8 holes in 2013, and they found really, really prolific copper mineralization ranging from 50 to 100 meters of around 0.5 to 0.7% copper underneath some really widespread trenches of copper. In the mining and extraction of iron ore, copper is a deleterious element over the extraction of iron, so the iron would not be worthwhile. So this became more of a copper story. We optioned their ground at the Furaso claims from them. We acquired the massive land position in 2015 through 2016. And then we went out and carried out extensive work from 2018 through 2020. A big delay, which was unforeseen, was COVID. That delayed us for about 3 years to get our first social access agreement. We believe we're the first in the region to do that and get the formal drill permit that we had to do the first phase. And now we're working towards our second major permit, which will expand that permit, and I'll touch on here in a few slides going forward. The geology was comparing to all the major mines next door. The scale of the opportunity was comparing to the mines next door, and all of the same rocks that host those mines next door were occurring on our property. Really a gentleness towards it. It's an underground volcano. As that intruding underground volcano would occur, it has a chemical reaction when it hits various limestones in blue or sediments in yellow. This is where a lot of the mineralization is occurring. What I want you to take away from this slide, and this is only a small part of our property, is it's a cluster of different intrusions with targets being circled in red. The other factor I want you to take away from this slide is the 2.5 kilometer scale bar. The scale of what we're looking for is substantial. These are opportunities to find mines that could make the top 20 scale deposits in the world if mineralized with really rich mineralization, which we're seeing a lot of evidence on in various parts of the surface. Moving on to the analogous features of Las Bambas, we've compared this many times. This is very important to us because you don't want to be that much of a pioneer in a new area. You want to use comparisons that give you a lot more confidence that you're looking for something that's already been found nearby. We're showing you in scale our intrusions in comparison to the ones that make up the famous Las Bambas mine. The big difference between these two maps, ours on the left, theirs on the right, is the scale of the intrusions are slightly larger on ours, and there's a few more that we're identifying, such as Titicaca and Antipampa. And secondly, this has been also the other reason why this opportunity existed, is because of the amount of volcanic cover that covers our targets. So that blind nature is challenging, but the prize could be as good or potentially better is how we see it based on the exploration we've done today. When looking for these major deposits in areas that have volcanic cover, we have to rely on electrical studies and magnetic studies. And what we're doing in very layman terms is we're looking at X-raying the earth to see if there's a signal or a reflection of rocks that are conductive or that have magnetic features, because magnetite, which is a very magnetic rock, is largely associated with the skarn mineralization, the type of rocks that can potentially hold both copper and gold in really good values. We've done a bit of drilling on our Coscobamba area. We've had a chance to explore, and we've realized not only is the system present, but there are areas that are starting to look like they could have the potential grades that we're looking for to find this near surface or from surface, open pit, really rich copper gold discoveries. There are 8 previous drill holes at an area called Furasso, identified in the image in front of you. We have not drilled this area. This is the discovery that drove us to this project in the first place. We didn't have these when we first acquired Sombrero. We found these results late 2019, 2020, and we were able to get them sampled and realize that discovery has already started. But our drilling to date has been in an area that we were permitting prior to getting a lot more knowledge in the project, which we have now. If you look on the next slide, 14, deflection of surface highlights at Sombrero. There's incredible grade, 230 meters of 0.5% copper plus 0.13 gold, 109 meters of 0.67 copper, of which 30 meters ran almost 2%. These are really, really high grades of copper to be on surface, and those are very, very compelling widths to go and explore under and around. We've had a chance to drill near the 109 meters of 0.67% copper, but we had a limited polygon at the time, so we couldn't explore it fully. We will be coming back to that area in our next phase of drilling, but our focal point is going to be around the trench of 230 meters of about 0.5% copper that I first mentioned at the Furasso area of the project. Looking at that in a bit more depth, what did those drill holes look like near surface? Mineralization started from surface. We saw things such as 90 meters of 0.5% in historical drilling. We saw 51 meters of 0.5% and 116 meters of 0.42% copper, 0.24 gold. That would average approximately 0.6% copper gold equivalent. In the image, the lower left side of the image, you see copper mineralization both in the oxidized rock, as well as in the sulfides. That's important because there's always the concern that your copper gets enriched near surface, but seeing it in the sulfides and at 62 meters, seeing over 1% copper and 0.5 gram gold was very, very critical for us to see that the roots of the system could be present as well. In the image in front of you, we have outlined the trench on surface in a green line, the 230 meters of about 0.5% copper, and we've identified 2 of the drill traces, but also the proposed holes that we're going to be drilling in the blue lines once we get our permit for this area in the not too far future. Moving on to our Furasso Advanced Discovery Expansion Potential slide. This is now from the sky looking down an aerial view. The black dots represent the previous drill holes. The white dots represent where we're going to be drilling our holes going forward. We also show some of the intercepts that have occurred previously. This is a small window of exposure where the rocks are sticking out. They do go undercover, but this area is going to be critical in not only unlocking the potential of how big this area could develop as a deposit, but also will give us context on a lot of the areas that we spent time drilling our first 20 holes. It would be a big key to the major system that we're exploring. And just to remind you where the drill holes are going to go on the robust discovery expansion of Furasso, this is not a new discovery story as much as a discovery expansion story. The good news about that is very little has been discovered so far, and the prospectivity in our interpreted geology map here is excessively high. It's very prospective. There's a rock formation labeled as the Mara, and that seems to be a key formation here, which is helping the mineralization form. We also see it in other areas such as our Nyack and Antapampa targets. So we're finding out rock types that are hosting the really rich skarn mineralization that we're looking for. We're seeing the potential not only for grade, but for expansive widths that could become a mining scenario. So things are looking extremely prospective. When we went out to drill the first phase of our program, we did not have access here. We would have drilled this first, but the knowledge we gained in the surrounding area was very, very critical going forward, and it's helping us learn various other aspects of the entire property and all the other targets that we're identifying. In terms of the phase 1 drill program, Cascabamba target, we've had some pretty great outcomes here, specifically on the Chumpi target. We were unfortunately limited by our polygon. We did not drill the contact between the intrusion and the limestone. Where we did get, though, was the edge of it, and as those holes were drilled, they were vectoring through the right rock types to get towards that very compelling skarn mineralization that you see over at Furasso. On the Ohota target, we did drill 19 meters of 0.5% copper. These holes confirmed the presence of this mineralized system. The scale was confirmed, which is good and bad. It's good that it's a major system, that there's a lot of room to find a lot of metal, but the challenge is there's a lot of places to look before you find the sweet spots. The amount of learning that we've done and the amount of capabilities of our team has increased. We've brought in outside independent world-class experts to evaluate this, and we've all had the same report card: keep drilling. This is a major system, and it's a matter of time before you start to find the sweet spots of it, independent of an area like Furasso, which we plan to drill next, that already has the start of a major discovery, or so we think. Slide 19 is a vertical window, about 400-meter cliff, and this is another factor that gave us really, really good confidence that the geology beneath the surface through our X-raying of the earth, our geophysics, our magnetics was real. You see a cliff here with mining adits halfway down the cliff, about 200 meters down the cliff. Historically, the Guadalupe and Spanish workings were known to be mining extremely high grades of copper. You can see the grade of copper and gold that sits above the skarn body and peripheral to it. You can see the marble, which is the limestone. You can see the intrusion on the left side. So you see all the right rock types that we're exploring in other areas of our project. The volcanic cover here is quite thin, right over top of the skarn. But if you walked over this area, you wouldn't likely be able to trench down to that rich skarn body. So it gives you a 3D model. It puts validation towards our thesis, and it gives us the complexities, but also the confidence that these big skarn bodies can occur in this part of Peru within our property. Moving ahead to our infrastructure. Infrastructure is a critical step in any copper project. There's 2 things that matter. One is grade, because grade will solve everything, but 2 is infrastructure, which directly affects profitability. In the case of Sombrero, we are blessed with roads. We are blessed with power lines going right across the property. We have 2 nearby towns for our workforce. We have multiple sources of water, and we're only at 3,900 meters elevation with very moderate terrain. This is going to benefit us considerably in the whole aspect of a mining scenario, or any grades that we find will be worth more here due to that extremely favorable infrastructure. Moving ahead to the next slide. So the key here has been the communities. We have lived in the communities for the past 9 years. We hired an animal health specialist, an agricultural engineer. We conducted the Agradias business plan. This is a plan where the government sponsors. We write grants to the government to sponsor agricultural programs. When doing social impact, environmental impact assessments, and trying to help communities, whether it was in my first company in Africa or in Mexico or now into Peru, it's always about what the people need, not what we think they need. And that's been a big factor of my career, learning about that. The team was very clever to get into the communities and find out that there was a big iron deficiency in people's diets. There was a lack of agriculture at that elevation. So we brought in Australian lamb breeding programs, we brought in French cows, we brought in fish farms, and we have several other programs to benefit not only the existing community Huancasancos that we work with, but the neighboring communities, which we're looking to also explore in as we have a significant land position. This is something we are very proud of. We're going to expand on considerably. It will affect not only social access and permits, but environmental permits and the behavior with the Peruvian government. It's our weapon towards shortening timelines going forward and benefiting the community in a sustainable manner, whether we find a mine or not, so that they're affected for many years to come. The fully permitted area for drilling is in the polygons that you see there in the Cascabamba target area. That's being expanded, but this slide here is just to give you an idea where we are with our community access agreements. We currently have a 3-year access agreement at Huancasancos that's renewable, and we are working towards one at Lucanamarca, San Jose de Huacaya as well. The next community we're working towards is Lucanamarca, and it will continue on to the north and other communities to the south. These communities are complex. It's highly educational. The ability to work without incident in Huancasancos to date, to benefit the communities extensively, and to give a lot of jobs to the community members has been an honor for us and a privilege. And we hope the neighboring communities will appreciate the same as we move forward in the region. Moving on to slide number 24 here, the new drill permit application that we have. What we're showing you here is our 900 hectare permit. We've applied for, which had allowed us to drill 49 holes from 38 pads. We now have the ability to drill 200 holes from numerous pads, and we're tripling the size of our permitted area. As you can see in yellow, we're adding about 2,100 hectares in additional areas. This will give us access not only to Furaso, which we plan to drill next, the Chumpe target, where we were vectoring to the skarn contact, but the polygon limited us, but also to Tipicancha and the western sides of Corrales, where we have strong geological reason to believe these could also host world-class major discoveries. The major takeaways from the technical side of things is best described on our website, on our fireside chat, where Keenan Jennings, Tim Kingsley, and myself had a chance to talk about that in great detail. But ultimately, in really succinct words, the system is present. There's huge opportunity for major high-grade, large open pit or from surface type of discoveries, and this property is very target-rich. We have had a chance to review our entire land package at a cursor level. We are going to be acquiring some more ground. We're going to be divesting of other ground just so that we're being very efficient with our use of capital and our land position. And we're going to keep into the most prospective areas that have the most compelling targets as we continue to explore this multi-generational project. Moving on to slide number 26, the key targets. There's about 10 of them right now that stand out towards us, and we've got a little table here showing you that Furaso will be drilled next. Several others are ready to drill, and then the list of them that are advancing to drilling. The goal would be able to drill all of these in the next 18 months. That's our timeline to get through all of them. Each of these stars represent an independent world-class discovery opportunity. As we all know, discovery of that caliber is extremely rare, and the odds are against us. I don't think all of these will make it, but a chance to find 2 or 3 major discoveries within this land position is what we're after. And this certainly gives us a very, very strong pipeline and a multi-generational exploration opportunity to find world-class discoveries along this new thesis that we're extending the Andahuaylas-Yari Belt with the major mines 200 kilometers to the west. Our share structure, we have 177 million shares out. In my career of learning, it's been about who owns your shares, not how many you have out as much. We still have a relatively small capex. Teck is our largest shareholder at 9.9%. Newmont is a major shareholder. Management and directors own about 1.6%. I own about 3.5% of the company. I have increased my share position since last May, since we brought the company public. We've came out the gates and financed this company at $5 spot copper prices last May. That was about a 2-week window before copper took a nosedive to $3.90 in the last quarter of last year. It's recovering. We're at about $4.50 per pound spot price. I think the copper equities will pick up a lot once copper gets through $5 spot price in the last quarter of this year, going into the first 2 quarters of next year, as we see significant supply crunches again in the LME Futures Metals Exchange. So from that perspective, we're in a good cash position. As of March, we have $8.1 million in cash. There's less now because we had some payments for our claims go through it, but we have working capital for about 12 months as I stand here today in this presentation. We have some of the best shareholders in the world, and your patience has certainly been tested. I know mine has, but I sit here with one of the most rare opportunities in the world to find multiple copper discoveries as the copper price is going into a much more compelling performing sector due to supply issues. Sombrero is unique. It has the audience of corporates already in the registry. Several others are watching it, and it has not performed well until recently. And I think as we get our permits going forward, you're going to see an increased performance as people resume speculating as we go drill some of these really, really compelling targets. The most compelling near-term catalyst for us is going to be the advancement of drill permits. We're about to file a 3,000-page report for our 200-pad permit that we're expanding, which will include Furaso, Tipiconcha, all the areas that I've spoke of. Once that is filed, it could be anywhere from 90 to 120 days before we're able to drill. We will provide updates along that time frame. We are also working towards expanding community access in the region. There will be more news about that, we anticipate, between now and the fall. And lastly, as quiet as the company has been with press releases, we've been sampling, trenching numerous targets that I showed you on the previous slide. The compelling nature of Sombrero has been the pre-drilling work that we've done. I don't think we have identified the best areas yet based on new areas that we're sampling, but there will be some highly compelling targets to go drill in the next 6 to 18 months as we get ourselves ready to complete our next stage of permits, community access, and drilling. So in the spirit of any investment, timing is everything. This is an exceptional copper exploration asset. As far as my career goes, I've hung on to this one for nearly half my career, and it's getting better, not just with me. You'll hear it with Keenan and Tim Kingsley, Christian Rios. We're finding some massive targets. We're finding incredible mineralization on surface in new areas and looking at numerous other opportunities to acquire. We still haven't met a project globally that meets the criteria that Sombrero offers. The alignment with communities is our essential pathway forward, not just socially as good citizens and getting social access, but also for permitting and being able to monetize a discovery in this region. Our leadership is very deep, not just from a monetizing finance perspective, but having the caliber of people on our board. A lot of former senior executives from BHP, one of the largest miners in the world, as well as a very hungry exploration team led by Tim Kingsley. And lastly, the price outlook for copper. Copper equities have not reacted lately. The mid-tiers and the majors have, but the current supply crunches that we're facing and the new electrification of the planet, this is a slow-moving bull market for copper, but it's going to pick up steam, in my view, in the coming 6 to 12 months. and we are timing that coincidentally with a chance to make some of the best copper discoveries in the world. That is the end of my presentation. If you have any more questions, please visit our website. For those of you who have not heard it, listen to our fireside chat with Keenan and Tim Kingsley. It will give you some raw technical perspective of what we see and what we like. But at this time, I'll open up to any questions that we have that have come in during the call. All right. It looks like we don't have questions. I'll wrap it up by saying look forward to news in the next prior to the fall, news about permits, news about additional community access, and most importantly, news about substantial new results from new areas that we are exploring once we get them back. Thank you very much and have a great summer.
This concludes the meeting. You may now disconnect. Thank you.